Here in conversation with, well, the princess of common sense, that is, Rita Panahi. Stephen Conroy slowly going crazy in his home, of course, the former Labor Senator, and our mate Pauline Hanson, the leader of One Nation in Queensland. Pauline, I'll start with you. Now, Is it true that One Nation have made it public you will not back Labor if minority government is required at the other side of the election?
Yes, I have, Paul, and I'm quite adamant about that. We don't need another Labor government in Queensland, and they need to be thrown out on their ear. They've actually destroyed the farming sector. They've just given the public service another $260 million in pay rises. The Reef 2050 Act is again destroying it. They're not for coal mining, which props up the whole state with royalties that we get from our coal mining jobs in central Queensland. They're not supporting, Great Keppel Island with the tourists that we need there to that development to go ahead. There's so many, they're not for water security. There are so many negatives about this Labor government that we've had under Palaszczuk, and they've run the debt to over $100 billion. They can't manage the economy. They need to be thrown out.
So you've still issued, of course, a ticket that when people go to how to vote, they're only going to see vote one for One Nation, and then if you've got four other people running, you've got a number, one for One Nation, and then you pick everywhere else. If you're not going to declare, if in the end you won't support Labor, why wouldn't you direct preferences more aggressively and publicly to the LNP?
We've got a split ticket, Paul, and so anyway, that split ticket, the people can decide where they want to put their vote. So we're saying 1 to One Nation, 2 to Katter Party if they're sending a candidate in that electorate. Now, we have to indicate where preferences go. You have to fill it out to give people an indication. They can choose whether they want to put Labor last, or we're saying put Greens last, whether they want to put Labor second last, or whether they want to put the LNP second last. Look, at the last election, we got accused because we preferenced every sitting member last. We got accused by the LNP by putting Labor back into government. But the LNP directed preferences against us that we could have won those seats and we could have actually been in a coalition government with the LNP, but it was Tim Nicholls. He was so bloody minded, he said we would rather be in opposition than in a coalition with the One Nation. Now, hopefully, the LNP have taken a different approach this time around. So what I'm trying to do is educate the voters out there, understand your preference system. It is not the political parties' how to vote cards. They are only a recommendation. The voter holds the pen. You decide who's your best choice. If they don't get up, then your vote will flow to your second choice. If they don't get up, it flows to your third. That's how your preferences work. So I advise the voters out there, understand how the voting system works. You decide who will be government in Queensland.
Agree completely. Rita, hold your fire. Stephen. So the ABC runs this hit job. Channel 7 even tonight turns around and says, while she did nothing wrong, optics are what it's about. The story itself about Deb Frecklington and the lunch where the developers were at says, while none of the developers appear to have made donations, how exactly am I running a protection racket when the story itself says that no one donated money, and donating the money is what the rules cover, not whether or not two adults can have lunch?
You've got to start with the premise of the story. Her own party has just stabbed her in the back. I mean, this isn't a Labor hit job. This is a hit job from her own party administration. So let's just pretend that didn't not there, Paul. Let's pretend her party is actually trying to destroy her candidacy and stop her being Premier. So nothing to see here, Paul. Just move right along. But then let's actually go to what it says in the story. And Paul, I have actually read it. And what it says is that people are being encouraged.
Then you're ahead of most that talked about it today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But it says that people are being encouraged to donate to a third-party front so that that organisation could then make donations that wouldn't look like they were coming from the individual. That's actually what it says. That is a serious breach of the electoral laws. And so there is a story here about what the people are organising. Then let's talk about how she was publicising this. I have never, in my 35 years in active politics, 20 obviously in the Senate, seen a leader's office prepare their own flyer. They did it in their own office to hide it from their own party office. That is actually what happened. Paul, it stinks to high heaven. Why did she need to hide it from her own party? Why? Why did she hide it from her own party?
Don't we get into the specifics about, you know, what was said at? I mean, who organised the dinner? What was said at the dinner, as opposed to what is being inferred about what happened at the dinner. I'm not in her office. I don't have an answer about that, but I'm talking about the story as presented and the reaction that meant this dominated a day, this robbed them of a day to make the case against the government.
Being referred by your own party to the Electoral Commission for breaches...
She denies that happened.
It's just a letter. It slipped out. Right. They dropped on the pavement outside the Electoral Commission. That's right, all the details.
I'm just... Okay, but here's the thing, right?
You're made, Paul, to the core point,
right,
that the allegation in the story says that people were asked to donate to a third party to cover the fact that property developers couldn't make donations and the third party would make the donation for them. It's in there, in black and white, in the story. That is a serious allegation.
Well, hang on.
That has to be investigated.
It is a serious allegation, but the story, which is filled with other black and white words in there, it ain't gospel as far as I'm concerned, because of the spin that's in it, the headlines that were on it, and as I said, the facts of the legality of the matter. But Pauline, I can hear you reacting, and by the way, again, I'd be more than happy to scream and yell with Stephen, but I'm being respectful to the internet delays that are around all of us, so I'm not shying from a fight. I'm just letting people have their say. Pauline, what do you think of this?
It is a Labor Party beat up as far as I'm concerned. Deb Frecklington is the leader of the parliamentary party. She is not leader of the administrative side of the party. That is up to the President, and it's up to whether the party agent or the registered officer to deal with the Electoral Commission. She admitted that she was not referred to the Electoral Commission by the party. Now, I've run a political party and I've been quite involved in all this, knowing how it's run. Donations, there is nothing stopping ratepayers or people who are taxpayers of Queensland to actually go to a function by the Liberal Party. They say they made donations afterwards. That is picked up and it's in a disclosure that is submitted to the Electoral Commission. It's then up to the Electoral Commission to investigate that. This is a complete beat-up by the Labor Party, and you were spot on what you said before. The donations that comes from the unions to the Labor Party is atrocious, and it should be investigated.
Correct.
Now, the unions are involved in the superannuation schemes and funds that are put to it. These superannuation funds then tell people where developments will happen because they control the monies. This is where it goes. And so the unions have a lot to answer for, and their involvement in politics and actually involved in banks in Australia. So don't start complaining about developers when you should be looking at the unions, their donations to the Labor Party and their control over a lot of legislation and policy that goes through our parliaments.
Correct. There is only one donor, with the exception of the Parliament United Party, who actually gets to pick the candidates, who actually gets to pick the platform, and that's the union movement with the Labor Party.